what I'd like to do, just to give a framework, and there's different frameworks I'm sure, but just for the sake of what we're doing, is to think of the actual process of the study in these different categories. That you, as a leader, you're launching the discussion, that's obvious. You need to guide it. And this can be a challenge because something may come up in that group that you feel in your spirit is so important that you actually put the stuff aside and you just focus on that. But it could also be a waste of time. And so that is part of, as a leader, you're just calling on the Holy Spirit's help to know how to lead that particular thing. So you launch it, you guide it, and then, and this can be hard for some people, but you summarize. You try to pick up, okay, so what are we saying about this? What are some of the conclusions? And some people actually are very good at this. And the chances are there may be someone in the group that's able to pick this up and just succinctly bring about what is being said, but then particularly to bring a conclusion whereby there's an application from what has been learned. And so just in context of our School of Biblical Studies, the way we approach it, the launching questions can often be good observation questions. You're getting people to observe what is there and to see what's there. The guiding can have to do with interpretation. What does it mean? And then summarizing has to do with the application, trying to apply. Now, one of the things that I would encourage is that as you're preparing your study, you do come up with a lesson plan. In other words, you have thought these things through. As you're praying about your particular study, what is it that you want to accomplish through this study? It may be that you end up with something different. But you know it's true with all preaching, all teaching. If you aim at nothing, then you're going to hit it. It's good to have a sense, God, what is it that we're trying to do, we're trying to get from this? And so that you have a purpose and a direction that you're wanting to drive this. And so you begin with an outline. Now, what I've done here, just by way of example, talking about Psalm 3, I've got here just an example of a plan for Psalm 3. And as I've reflected on that psalm, what is my goal? My goal, as I'm preparing for it, as I've studied it, as I've reflected on it, is a recognition that we go through times of deep adversity. Times when we, maybe with the psalmist, would cry out and say, how many are my foes? Times when we may feel those same voices that say there's no help for you in God, this kind of thing. And so as people walk through that, as we walk through that, what the outcome would be a real sense of being able to find God in that and to trust Him in the midst of that. So that is where I think the study may well go as I begin on Psalm 3. And then we want to, of course, begin with prayer, the introduction to the study. And what I've got here is a hymn. You may know the hymn that it's when peace like a river. The chorus is, it is well with my soul. Do you know that hymn? This one here. Peace like a river attendeth my way when sorrows like sea billows roll. Whatever my lot, you have taught me to know it is well with my soul. I think the writer of this was a man named Spofford, and the story is that first of all his daughter died through disease, then his business burned down, and then he was travelling across the ocean from America, and because of the business which had burned down, he sent his wife and children on ahead. That ship had an accident and his daughters died. His wife survived. And this hymn came out of that experience. What a powerful story. What a powerful hymn. And so maybe in the study as the leader, I would begin by maybe talking about that. And so I'm trying to find my lesson plan. There we are. Just by a way of trying to set a scene. And then read the psalm and talk about the psalm. Talk about the circumstances that were behind the writing of this song, at the Psalm of Lament, where David is praying and talking. And then maybe some what I called launching questions. And as I've thought about these are some suggestions of questions that I would ask. What is the significance of the repetitions in verses 1 and 2? O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying to me, there's no help for you in God. What would it have been? So this is kind of like an observation. Why do you think that is repeated? What is the atmosphere of that? Getting people to try and engage with the emotion of the psalm. And then what is David's response that comes from that? And then what did David, this is now more interpretation, what does David mean by the figures of speech? But you, O Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts up my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, he answered me from his holy hill. There's some images there. What are those images trying to portray? What is your response to the statement of verse 5 and 6? This is radical two verses, because in the midst of everything he says, I lie down and sleep, I wake again for the Lord sustains me. What an amazing response when his life is being threatened. I wouldn't necessarily be sleeping. I'm not afraid of 10,000 people against me. How can David say the things he does in verse 7 and still be godly? Rise up, O Lord, deliver me, O my God. Basically, strike all my enemies on the cheek, break the teeth of the wicked. Basically, kill them. How does that work when Jesus says, love our enemies? There's just How does that work? And in what areas does God affirm the character of God? So I'm just trying to give you some examples here of how, as you're thinking of your study, you've thought of some questions that you can use to help people engage with the text in observation and also in interpretation. And then summarising. Who can share some experiences when they felt like David in verses 1 and 2? When there's been that sense there's no help for you in God. Have you known those times? Can you identify with those feelings? And in relationship to this kind of circumstance, what aspects of the character of God do you think you need to grow in? So it's trying to be personal, and what steps can we take to see this happen? So in just a simple way, trying to having thought through where you're going, and it may well be that as you're talking, different questions come up. Maybe you don't get through all these questions. The goal isn't to get through your questions, but at least you're prepared. You have some kind of direction where you're taking this, and all being well, that's where you're going to end up, because you want to be in a place where people who may be really wrestling right now, think just lost their job, absolutely no idea where they're going to have income. Where is God in that? Maybe suffered a tremendous injustice. Terrible things happen. So whatever it is, that is the idea of the lesson plan. So you've actually thought that through.